Before we take off, it is important to file a flight plan. A flight plan describes your expected starting point, end point, and planned route. It also talks about alternate routes in the case of bad weather. This way, if a plane goes missing, we can locate it. While you are doing your walk around, you should make sure that everything is in good working order. I spotted a new dent while I was doing my pre-flight. Now that you've finished your pre-flight check, you can start the engine and begin flight procedures. As you are flying, it is important to keep in touch with airports that you fly over. This way, aircraft can avoid collisions. You just heard a few sentences that could be used in any airport in the world, and that's what I want to look at more closely in this video. You can use short sentences and be grammatically correct, but sometimes they don't tell the whole story. In the sentences you heard, adverb clauses were used to show a progression or a sequence of how things happened. Using complex sentences like these can help you get a better idea of what is happening, and they can help you communicate more fully with your colleagues more during a flight. So let's look at one of those sentences. Before we take off, it is important to file a flight plan. Before we take off is an adverb clause. It tells us when something is happening. In this case, first we file a flight plan, and second we take off. Knowing the order of something is really important, and that's why we're using an adverb clause in this sentence. Let's look at the structure of the sentence. Before we take off is an adverb clause, and it is important to file a flight plan is the main clause. How can we know this? First of all clauses, adverb clauses, main clauses, and other types of clauses must contain two things, the subject and a verb. In the adverb clause, the subject is we and the verb is take off. In the main clause, the subject is it and the verb is. So what then is the difference between an adverb clause and a main clause? The difference is the word before. Before is a subordinating conjunction. This means you can't use this type of clause without also using a main clause. In other words, you can't say before we take off and nothing else. That isn't a complete idea. You need to add another clause before or after before we take off. Let's look at a different sentence. As you are flying, it is important to keep in touch with airports you fly over. What is the adverb clause in this sentence? If you said, as you are flying, you're correct. As you are flying is the adverb clause. What is the subordinating conjunction in this adverb clause? The subordinating conjunction is as. And what is the main clause in the sentence? It is important to keep in touch with airports as you fly over. Now that you've learned a little bit more about what adverb clauses look like, go back to the beginning of the video and look at the sentences again. Identify the adverb clauses and think about how you can use them or change them to better communicate your own ideas. You'll be using adverb clauses later when you give your mission brief. Then, when you're finished, continue reading so you can have a better understanding of why we use adverb clauses.